Chapter 21 New Life in the 35th year, Luo Hao is over 70. The status of the Black Tiger Gang has long been deeply rooted in the city. Luo Hao's voice is even greater than that of the city lord of Black Tiger. The leader of the Black Tiger Gang has not become unstable because of Luo Hao's age. Although Luo Hao's 2 children are 1 boy, 1 girl, and 2 children, the strength of the 2 children has reached the energizing stage. In the past few decades, the Black Tiger Gang has also been smooth, and nothing else has happened. It was also a night. After Luo Hao fell asleep, he ended his life in Black Tiger City. Gang fight, the simulation is over. Start settlement. Hearing the system prompt, Luo Hao knew that his second life simulation was over. Just as Luo Hao was thinking about the gains and losses of this life, the system prompt sounded again. Your life is full of legends, and you have left many legends in the Acropolis, which is quite famous in the whole country. Your martial arts are strong and you are a master practitioner. A complex town with all kinds of forces was integrated, and it won the title of Overlord. By relying on your own efforts, you have realized the ordinary people of the gang, and even surpassed the ideals of many practitioner masters in their lives. Final evaluation, SSS finally earned points, 8,000 points. Due to reaching the highest evaluation, the gang war world will no longer be open. Compared with the first sims, this time Luo Hao has more experience in touching you for the second time. Although it is different from the first world, Luo Hao also successfully reached the top of this world with his own efforts. After thinking about it, Luo Hao opened the system panel. Life simulator points, 8,270 mall. Slightly looking at the system panel, Luo Hao has accumulated more than 8,000 points, and Luo Hao also smiled with satisfaction. Compared to the first 1,000-point reward, the 8,000 this time is definitely very generous. Without thinking about it anymore, Luo Hao opened the system mall and skipped the insignificant things. Black Tiger Fist Technique, the price is 500 points. Black Tiger Saber Technique, the price is 800 points. Physique Point, 1,500 points. Unknown Wide Knife, the price is 200 points. Looking at it roughly, Luo Hao directly chose the 2 most important ones. Start. Drawing, draw physical points, draw Black Tiger Fist Technique. It is always not enough to have physique and blood, unable to use fist technique as a medium to penetrate the body. Although Luo Hao knows how to upgrade to the intensive period, it takes a lot of time to accumulate the second life simulation, Luo Hao, but it took 10 years to reach the full strength period. At this time, it is better to have a ready-made one. As for the Black Tiger Saber Technique, Luo Hao thought it was unnecessary. For the time being, as a civilian, it is always bad to walk on the street with a simple knife. As Luo Hao made a choice, the voice of the system rang again. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully extracting a complete physique. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully extracting the Black Tiger Fist Technique. Luo Hao, lying on the bed, heard the sound of the system drop at the moment. The body has also changed again. A stream of heat spread from Luo Hao's chest to all the bones around Luo Hao's body. Suddenly, Luo Hao felt that his body seemed to be sublimated. Qi and blood began to swim around Luo Hao's body, bones and meridians. Even faintly, Luo Hao could still hear the sound of running water. Luo Hao, who had already had some experience with this, immediately understood that this was because of an increase in physique. The qi and blood in the body begin to condense, and after the qi and blood in the body is over, Luo Hao felt the qi and blood in his body as if it was going to come out through his body, and immediately he didn't care whether he was wearing clothes or not. All the way to the courtyard, a set of Black Tiger fists suddenly swung out of his hands. Numerous strong winds blasted from Luo Hao's hands. With every punch Luo Hao shook, the tree in the distance shook slightly. Call. There seemed to be a tiger roar in the wind. By the time the last punch was thrown, Luo Hao's body surface had begun to turn red. A basin of cold water was poured directly from his head, and Luo Hao's face immediately showed a touch of joy. Out of strength, blood qi takes shape. This is the standard of the thorough period, with such a strength. Luo Hao looked at the surrounding courtyard and finally felt relieved. Looking at his arms with satisfaction, Luo Hao did not continue to stay in the courtyard, in order not to make xiaoying noise, but it is not easy to explain. The next day, early in the morning, when the sky just started to light up, Luo Hao had already got up and pushed Xiaoying's door slightly open. Looking at the little girl who was still sleeping, Luo Hao's mouth gradually rose. I didn't intend to wake Xiaoying. It was rare to not sleep in a straw bed. Fortunately, Xiaoying was allowed to sleep a little longer. Go to the kitchen, wash the rice and burn the fire. I cooked a pot of hot porridge, washed the pickles I bought in the market yesterday, and stirred them in the pot. Luo Hao took it out, and by this time it was 3 poles in the sun. Xiaoying also walked out of the room yawning. Wake up! Did you sleep well last night? Luo Hao, who put the hot porridge on the table, looked at Xiaoying in front of him, and asked. Yeah, it's really warm, much more comfortable than a straw bed. Big brother, sit down, I'll go to the kitchen to get it. Xiaoying stepped forward and helped Luo Hao to put the white porridge on the table very well, and then ran all the way to the kitchen. After the two had a simple breakfast together, Luo Hao took Xiaoying, and the two went to an old carpenter's house by the side of the street. After getting the cart that was ordered in advance, the two of them pushed the cart home together. Then we went to the market together and bought some materials needed for ginger candy. So far, the dozens of pieces of silver that Luo Hao brought out from his first life have basically been spent. After returning home, Luo Hao began to prepare ginger candy. There is a special kind of red ginger in this world, which is not so pungent and spicy, but has a touch of sweetness like wild fruit. Ginger candy is also a popular snack in this town's market. Adults and children are particularly fond of it, and Luo Hao also made some other fructose based on the memory of his previous life. Some of the more common fruits are squeezed into juice and then boiled in sugar water. Then, let it cool, split it with a cutter, and divide it into small squares of similar size. After busy working all day, Luo Hao also tinkered with the first pot of ginger candy and fructose. Xiaoying, come and taste it and see how it tastes. After Luo Hao cut the candy that had been shaped with a mold in front of him, he called Xiaoying. Xiaoying ran out of the kitchen and jumped to Luo Hao's side. He grabbed a fructose in front of him and put it in his mouth. A sweet and sour sensation different from sugar poured into her mouth, and Xiaoying's face immediately showed a smile. It's delicious. This is the first time I have eaten this sweet and sour candy. The candy that Aunt Six gave us was better than it was during the Chinese New Year. Snacks in this world are still stored in hot food. And the only common candies are ginger candy. Luo Hao also picked up a piece from the candy and put it in his mouth. Sugar can make people happy. This is a fact. Luo Hao, who has been tired for a day, after a piece of ginger candy was taken in, the corner of his mouth couldn't help but smile. It seems that tomorrow, we can go to set up a stall. Luo Hao smiled slightly, sorted the sugar in front of him, and then wrapped it in a large greased paper. After leaving some for Xiaoying, he took the made candies back to the living room. I pressed it up with a wooden board so that I wouldn't be eaten by a rat at night, and I was busy all day long. After doing these things, the sky began to darken, and the sunset in the sky began to fall. Luo Hao and Xiaoying started to fetch water and wiped all the inside of the house. Then after tidying up the courtyard, the two simply dealt with dinner, and then went to rest. Until the next day, when the sun was 3 poles. Luo Hao and Xiaoying, pushing the wooden cart, headed towards the market location at the entrance. After finding a fair stall and stopping, Luo Hao took out all the candies made yesterday. Everyone, come and take a look, delicious and inexpensive fructose. Auntie, come and have a look, delicious and inexpensive fructose, only 5 copper plates per serving. Uncle, buy some and go back to eat for the child. The child is cute and eats fructose. It only needs 5 copper plates. Luo Hao, who had just brought out the fructose and ginger candy, looked at Xiaoying, who had begun to yell constantly. There was a smile on his face, and Xiaoying began to shout together. Immediately, the ants who came to the market to buy vegetables or the people passing by were all around. It looks very novel. Is this the first day the girl came to the market? 1 for 5 copper plates, right, give me 1. I want a copy too. And me, give me a copy too. If there is a passerby who asks first, there will be a second one soon. 5 copper plates are not expensive. There are quite a few people who want to come here for a taste. In a short while, Luo Hao and Xiaoying's booth was already full of people. Luo Hao kept wrapping fructose and ginger candy in oil paper, and Xiaoying was also busy collecting money. In just 2 hours, the two people originally planned to have 1 day's worth, but they have already been sold out. There are even many repeat customers who plan to buy some, but unfortunately they have already sold out. Wow, how much did Big Brother make today? This is the first time I have seen so much money. Xiaoying looked at the copper coins in the small wooden box, and the smile on her face couldn't hide her. The two of them originally had about 60 copies today, and a 5 cents worth of money would add up to 300 cents. For the original life of the two, it is indeed a huge sum of money. But since his two lives, Luo Hao has a very weak sense of money. As long as it's enough, it's actually fine. Let's go, let's buy some delicious food, and then go home. I'm making more fructose today, and I will go out early tomorrow. Luo Hao stretched out his hand and rubbed Xiaoying's hair. Seeing Xiaoying's happy appearance, Luo Hao couldn't help but slightly raise the corners of his mouth. Xiaoying answered Luo Hao's voice, and took the initiative to get up and start packing up her things. After that, the two kept pushing the wooden cart and walked into the vegetable market. After buying a fish and some materials to be used tomorrow, the two of them walked towards the house together. After returning home, the division of labor between the two is also very clear. Luo Hao began to boil the fructose to be used tomorrow, and Xiaoying began to prepare lunch for the two. While preparing for lunch, Xiaoying was even more looking forward to her next life. It was clear that it was still a few days ago, and the two of them still relied on steamed bun soaking to fill their stomachs. Within a few days, the food for the two was ascending quickly, and the life full of fish and meat made Xiaoying feel in her heart. I couldn't help but secretly thanked him. Luo Hao fabricated the great good man who lost his way on the mountain. Time has passed since Luo Hao and Xiaoying moved to a new home. 1 year has passed. The two's fructose business was also relatively successful, although they didn't make much money. But life is almost the same as ordinary people. No need to worry about making a living. The two would come to the market to set up a stall in the morning every day, then go home for dinner at noon and start to boil sugar water. After dinner, the two would go to the night market to sell fructose together. In addition to the cost, the daily income will be 200 to 300 yuan. Today, it happens to be the time of the new year. Although the air in the winter night is still very cold, there are still many adults holding children. It is also this time to come to the night market to play. Many children started clamoring for fructose when they saw Luo Hao and Xiaoying's fructose stall. Through these few days of the Chinese New Year, both of them can directly double their income ascending. It was originally such a cold day, Luo Hao didn't want Xiaoying to join the stall. But Xiaoying understands that there are many people on the street during the New Year, and adults will meet some of the children's requirements at this time. So the business is the best, so I insisted on coming over to help Luo Hao. The two were busy until late at night when all the fructose was sold out. At this time, pedestrians on the roadside have begun to become scarce, and most of the vendors have begun to pack their things and close their doors. Seeing this, Luo Hao and Xiaoying began to clean up. Although some of the fructose was still unsold, Xiaoying shivered with cold. Luo Hao also pushed the car and left the night market with Xiaoying, which is not far from their homes. You'll probably be there by crossing almost 3 streets and then crossing a bridge. It's just the work of a cup of tea. Go back, I'll make you a ginger soup. Don't come with me tomorrow, so that it won't be bad if you catch the wind and cold. Looking at Xiaoying who kept breathing in her palms, Luo Hao also stretched out her hand, holding Xiaoying's 2 hands. With the weight of the wooden cart, he can push it forward with one hand. The other hand began to warm Xiaoying's hands. Big brother can't do it alone, and I have nothing to do at home. Tomorrow I will wear 2 more clothes, so it won't be so cold. Xiaoying took Luo Hao's hand. The smile on her face did not diminish because of the cold winter night. Luo Hao smiled slightly, and didn't say anything. Just thinking about bringing some charcoal over tomorrow, so that Xiaoying could be warmed up. 1 year has passed since Luo Hao's last life simulation. During this year, Luo Hao did not conduct life simulations, but just kept running in his body's memories of Black Tiger boxing. In addition, life has become stable now, and Luo Hao sometimes doesn't even want to go through those things. It's actually not bad to be with Xiaoying life in this way. Look at Big Brother, is there someone down in front of you? While Luo Hao was thinking about the life simulator, Xiaoying's voice sounded nearby. Luo Hao's gaze immediately turned towards Xiaoying's direction. With the faint light of the lantern next to him, Luo Hao saw a long-haired woman who fell face down on the ground, and underneath his body seemed to be wet, as if there was a pool of water stains. Wet? Did you fall into the water? But there seems to be some distance from the water bridge here. Looking at the surrounding environment, Luo Hao's brows began to frown. The cart in his hand also stopped, just looking at the woman lying on the ground 10 meters away. For some reason, the woman gave Luo Hao a strange feeling. After reaching the strength of the practitioner, Luo Hao has been able to simply observe the blood and breath of each person. The woman in front of her clearly breathed, but Luo Hao did not feel the blood of this woman. Brother, I'll go take a look. Xiaoying looked at Luo Hao in a daze, and just wanted to trot forward to look at the woman. But Luo Hao immediately pulled over the enthusiastic Xiaoying. Don't move, I always feel something is wrong. Luo Hao's brows were frowned, and he didn't know why he always remembered the corpses salvaged from the river that he saw on the edge of the water bridge a year ago. Brother, what's the matter? Xiaoying looked at Luo Hao suspiciously, but felt Luo Hao holding her hand, gradually tightening. He didn't insist on going forward to look at the woman, but slowly stepped back. The sudden change is the woman in front of Luo Hao and Xiaoying. Suddenly he stood up awkwardly, and his body began to shake extremely awkwardly. The lowered head suddenly lifted up, but this suddenly lifted head shocked Xiaoying behind Luo Hao, subconsciously hiding directly behind Luo Hao, not the facial features and face with normal skin color as usual. The long-haired woman in front of her is not only bloodless, not to mention, even the eyeballs became completely white, and the whole face looked like only a piece of skin remained. Flap. Hee. There was a strange noise in the woman's mouth, and a large amount of black water suddenly began to spit out of her mouth. Then the woman's body began to twitch violently. The next moment the woman's mouth suddenly opened wide, and suddenly expanded to an incredible width. Asterisk with the lantern, under such a terrifying scene, a hand covered with fangs and bumps stretched out of the woman's mouth. The next moment, a mouthpart full of sharp teeth, mixed with blood, came out of the woman's mouth. Facing Luo Hao and Xiaoying fiercely, the convulsing woman had also completely lost her movement and fell to the ground. The all-white pupils opened very wide, and the entire face was deformed. Like a deflated ball, you won't look down. Big brother, what is that? Xiaoying firmly grasped Luo Hao's clothes corner and hid behind Luo Hao. The voice had begun to tremble a little, just looking at the monster from the corner of his eyes. It made Xiaoying feel extremely horrified. Xiaoying stepped back a little. Luo Hao slowly pulled Xiaoying away from the corner of his clothes, and at the same time took a step forward. At this moment, the weird-looking monster with fangs and claws flew directly towards Luo Hao and rushed up. The sharp claws like a knife and the flashing cold light made Luo Hao's expression serious. The sudden burst of speed instantly tore the distance of 10 meters away from Luo Hao, and instantly appeared in front of Luo Hao. He waved his sharp claws with cold light, and shook it down suddenly. Luo Hao made a decisive decision, not retreating but advancing. The palm of his claws directly squeezed the monster's right arm. Crack! With a mention and a pull, Luo Hao directly broke the monster's arm. The left hand transported the blood in the body and slapped the monster's chest. With a full palm, the irresistible force lifted the monster's entire body from the chest, through the heart and then through the back, bursting out. Accompanied by the burst of blood, the seemingly weak monster flew directly backwards. A big hole like the mouth of a bull also appeared on the chest. It flew a distance of about 10 meters and hit the ground heavily. I thought that the monster could be killed directly under a palm, but the monster fell to the ground at the moment. As if not knowing the pain, he immediately got up from the ground when he turned over, sticking out his long scarlet tongue, licking the big hole in his chest. The injury in his chest began to heal at a speed visible to the naked eye. Something like granulation is constantly growing from the chest. After 1 or 2 breaths, the monster's chest was restored. Hiss! The monster who had recovered from his injury barked his teeth at Luo Hao with a low growl, not knowing if it was because of anger or something. Able to recover, but not so strong in strength. Can't wait for him to attack. Looking at the monster in front of him, Luo Hao briefly thought about it. A flash of cold light flashed in his eyes. Immediately, crack! The stone bricks on which Luo Hao was based broke apart in an instant. Xiaoying, who was hiding behind the car for fear, seemed to vaguely heard the rushing sound of the river flowing. Waiting from the back of the small wooden cart, when he stretched out his head to take a look, It was discovered that Luo Hao disappeared in the same place in an instant, and in an instant he blatantly tore a distance of about 10 meters from the monster. As if the terrifying blow of the tiger coming out of the mountain once again blasted the monster's chest with a powerful force of thunder. Boom! The muffled noise exploded in the hall. The airflow collapsed, and the force was blasting. When the smoke dissipated, the monster's chest had become bloody. The stone bricks under my feet have been completely shattered, and even a large hole has appeared on the ground. And the monster was lying in the big pit. Luo Hao didn't intend to stop. Instead, he transported the blood all over his body. Luo Hao understands that this monster will continue to regenerate. At this time, he has some guesses in his heart. If you blast the head of this monster directly, can you kill him directly? Thinking of this, Luo Hao didn't give the monster time to buffer, and grasped his fist right. There was a cool breeze in the air. It seemed to be able to be heard faintly, like the roar of a tiger coming out of a mountain. With a full blow, the black tiger punches. Even a rock high up to one person will be shattered by Luo Hao's punch. What's more, it's just a monster with not much body. With a violent fist. Wind, Luo Hao's black tiger fist fell straight down. After the monster saw Luo Hao's punch about to land on his head, a touch of horror appeared in the pale pupils. But it was too late. Luo Hao's fist had already been shaken. Boom! The floor of the whole street seemed to shake slightly because of Luo Hao's full punch. At this time, Xiaoying, who was hiding behind the car, saw Luo Hao standing not far from the lantern. Although he was scared in his heart, he managed to endure the shaking legs and walked slowly towards Luo Hao. On the other hand, Luo Hao looked at the headless corpse below, which was already motionless. But the brow was still not relaxed, still frowned. At the same time, the brain began to spin quickly. From the time it came to this world, Luo Hao remembered all those weird rumors that he heard outside. What was dragged into the river by the water ghost, what was sucked up by the monster, or the internal organs were dug out and eaten by the monster. These things began to appear in Luo Hao's mind like real cases. This world, it doesn't seem as simple as I thought. Luo Hao sighed deeply, glanced at the corpse under him, and shook the black blood on his arm. Turning around, she found that Xiaoying was already standing not far away with tears in her eyes. From the faint light of the lantern, Luo Hao could not only see the tears in Xiaoying's eyes, but also the slightly trembling body. It's okay, Xiaoying, let's go back. Luo Hao stretched out his left hand and put Xiaoying in his arms, and gently stroked Xiaoying's hair with his palm. To comfort Xiaoying, that constantly produces fear in her heart. Xiaoying, who was slowly in Luo Hao's arms, was not shaking anymore. After recovering, he nodded. The two of them were speechless all the way, pushing the wooden cart back home. Xiaoying didn't mention the monster, and Luo Hao naturally wouldn't mention it. After returning home, Luo Hao immediately washed off the black bloodstains on his hands. Then I took out the fructose that was dried today, sorted and cut the cubes, and then started to cook the ginger soup. Xiaoying's body bones are actually worse than girls of the same age. I don't usually have much nutritional supplements. It's only in the last year that life has started to get normal. The cold wind blows my body in one night and my body is already frozen. If I don't drink some ginger soup, it's not good if I catch the cold. Come and drink some ginger soup while sleeping, otherwise, what should I do if I catch the wind and cold? Luo Hao, who had prepared the ginger soup, handed the warm ginger soup to Xiaoying, who was sitting by the charcoal stove in the living room. Brother, what was that just now? It should not be a human. Brother, you shouldn't be a murderer. Xiaoying took the ginger soup and blew the heat from the ginger soup. After taking a sip, she looked at Luo Hao. No, that thing is a monster. Brother didn't kill anyone, so we shouldn't tell anyone about this, okay? Before Luo Hao could answer, Xiaoying looked outside the door nervously, and then whispered to Luo Hao. With less knowledge, sometimes the direction of thinking in my heart will be more simple. Xiaoying, who has been working hard to live in the slum, still understands the laws of this world. But I also can't believe that there will be such a monster, but in his heart, at least Luo Hao is absolutely not wrong. Luo Hao is just to protect her. The reason for not wanting Luo Hao to say it is also very simple, not wanting to encounter unnecessary troubles. I see. Quickly drink the ginger tea. After drinking, soak your feet with hot water, and then go to bed quickly. Luo Hao looked at Xiaoying's serious appearance, and couldn't help but raise the corners of his mouth slightly. After living together for many years, I naturally understand what Xiaoying means. He immediately assured Xiaoying. After all, Luo Hao didn't plan to tell anyone about this matter. But about that monster, Luo Hao already had some different thoughts in his heart. At the same time, where Luo Hao solved the monster, from the roof of the nearby shop, there were a few more people in gray clothes. A dagger jumped down from the roof and came to the headless monster. Unexpectedly, in such a small town, there will be such a master. It seems to be a master of the flesh. One of the burly gray-clothed men squatted down and touched the cracked ground with his palm. With the light of the lantern, one can still see the surprise on this man's face. It shouldn't be a companion. A ghost monkey of the 3rd rank. Even a corpse can go to the exorcism hall for 100 taels of silver. If you are a fellow exorcist, you will definitely take away the ghost monkey's corpse before you leave. Hearing the words of his companions, one of the gray-clothed men carefully analyzed the surrounding environment and spoke. The captain's words are reasonable. Could it be that some family members came to this town by chance? A woman with a thin body but a very pleasant voice rang. This is just a small town in a remote place. It's unlikely. Hurry up and clean up the scene. Anyway, we have to stay in the town for a few days, looking for clues on the scene. It's best to find that person, and forget it if you can't. The leader shook his head and spoke to everyone. The other people in gray also nodded immediately, and began to divide the work around. Some began to fold a fire to check the traces left around. Some began to take out a knife and shave something on the ghost monkey. On the second day, the sky only slightly lit up. Today Luo Hao did not take Xiaoying to set up a stall outside the vegetable market as usual. Instead, after putting Xiaoying in the vegetable market alone, I almost ran to the place where the accident happened yesterday. Just as Luo Hao thought, not long after the sky lit up, many people gathered around. As I pointed and pointed, I was constantly discussing this woman, who had been killed for the first time this month. But when he looked closely, Luo Hao found something different from last night. The woman was obviously murdered, and the body was still there. But the corpse of the monster was gone. There was still a black patch on the ground, but the corpse was no longer visible. The body is gone. I remember last night that the monster must have been slaughtered. Could it be that the Yaoner in the town was taken away? Luo Hao looked at the pool of black blood on the ground and couldn't help thinking in his heart. But the arrival of a group of people immediately interrupted his thoughts. A group of people in official clothes pushed away from the crowd and walked in front of the murdered woman. After seeing the woman's weird way of death, the faces of several catchers immediately wrinkled. Disgustedly, she put the woman's body on the stretcher, and then covered it with a white cloth. Judging from these performances, Luo Hao can conclude. When the incident happened yesterday, these officials have never been here. And the frowning brows on their faces, who came late now, are in terms of expressions. Luo Hao even guessed that it was not the first time they had seen this kind of thing. Very skillfully carried away the corpse, and then dispersed the crowd. Begin to clear up some traces of the scene. It seems that things are really not easy. The surrounding crowd has almost dispersed, and Luo Hao also left with the dispersed crowd. Heading directly in the direction of the vegetable market, Xiaoying was left alone in the vegetable market for too long. Luo Hao was not relieved, and his pace quickened immediately. But just as he stepped out a few steps, Luo Hao suddenly stopped in place, turned his head to the rear. It is still a street without any changes, and 2s and 3s on the side of the road are pedestrians passing by. It looked like a street on weekdays, and it was so peaceful. But Luo Hao felt a strange breath. There is always a feeling that others are staring at yourself. It may be an illusion. Luo Hao shook his head, and after perceiving it carefully, he felt like he was thinking too much. Immediately walked towards the front. Turning his head, Luo Hao's eyes began to narrow slightly after walking a few steps. He didn't choose to take the main road, and went straight to the path that he didn't usually walk on. After crossing the small road, Luo Hao turned a corner and stopped at an intersection. Looking directly behind him, a group of 5 people, all wearing gray cloaks. The blood on his body is much more vigorous than ordinary people. How do you feel? We are following you. The leader looked at Luo Hao, who stopped in front of him, with a slight surprise on his face. Several people. We shouldn't know each other. All the way from the market. There must be something going on with me. Luo Hao took a step forward, and at the same time began to transport the blood in his body. As long as he noticed anything wrong, will shoot without hesitation. Your Excellency, don't get me wrong, our brothers are not malicious. I just want to make friends with Your Excellency. The leader took off his cloak directly, and Luo Hao's scarred face was startled. Intricate scars, plus the only one arm left under the cloak. Luo Hao couldn't help but wonder what happened to this person before. Sorry, I don't like making friends very much. Luo Hao took his gaze away from the one-armed man, and turned around and directly planned to walk into the alley. But before taking 2 steps, the voice of the one-armed man came over. About the monster you met yesterday, aren't you curious at all? A sudden word from the one-armed man stopped Luo Hao's original steps. Yesterday's monster. Luo Hao turned around, his eyes narrowed slightly. At the same time, I started to think about what the one-armed man in front of me was saying. Luo Hao understands these people in front of him, can tell the time of last night, and also used some clues to find himself in such a short period of time. They are certainly not ordinary people. Although they may not be as strong as Luo Hao, but in this world for a long time, his knowledge is definitely much broader than Luo Hao. The chi and blood are like, and the storm is like the wind. Your strength, I really admire you. The next name is Dizhou. These are my brothers. We have no bad intentions. I don't know if I can go to a place suitable for chatting and have a chat with you. Dizhou looked at Luo Hao in front of him, and a slight surprise flashed in his eyes. But immediately De Long returned to normal, smiled heartily, and invited Luo Hao. Just after touching Luo Hao's eyes, Ti Long could feel the strong energy of blood in Luo Hao's body. And most importantly, Luo Hao in front of him is a teenager. Okay, then please come with me. Luo Hao took a deep look at Dizhou. When his hostility broke out, Dylan still didn't make any movements, but repeatedly showed that he was not malicious. Luo Hao immediately withdrew his breath, and he was also very curious about the monster in Ti Long's mouth. He walked directly in front, leading the way for Ti Long. Luo Hao stopped until he reached a small tea house. Turning his head to look at the people behind him, he pushed open the door of the tea house and walked in. The business in the tea house is not good. It is already close to noon, but the inside of the tea house is empty. Luo Hao reached a corner and sat down directly. The one-armed man followed, and the others sat on the table next door. Since Your Excellency knows what happened last night, you can tell me why you are looking for me. After ordering tea. After the waiter left, Luo Hao looked at the one-armed man in front of him. Of course, the monster that Your Excellency encountered last night, we call it an evil spirit. In this world, there are some weird and powerful existences. What you saw yesterday was an evil spirit. Hearing the word evil spirits, Luo Hao's expression on his face was startled, and he did not interrupt De Long. Instead, he looked forward to hearing Dylan's next words. Looking at Your Excellency, you should have grown up in a town, right? I should have heard some very strange but illogical strange events, such as people who died for strange reasons. These are actually evil spirits at work. Ti Long looked at Luo Hao's expression and immediately confirmed his own conjecture. As early as last night, they were probably determined to be near Luo Hao's house with black blood stains. In the morning, I saw Luo Hao come to the scene of the crime again, with a different expression from ordinary people watching the excitement. At that time, Ti Long guessed that Luo Hao might not know anything. And now from Luo Hao's expression, Ti Long has also authenticated his own idea. Although Luo Hao has great strengths, he really doesn't know anything. The weird monsters in this world, in addition to evil spirits, there are souls and demon spirits. And our brothers are demon hunters who specialize in hunting these monsters for a living. Watching the waiter in the tea house come to deliver tea, Ti Long also stopped immediately. After the waiter left, he immediately started talking to Luo Hao. After an hour, Luo Hao and De Long walked out of the tea house. Brother Luo, are you really not with us anymore? In this kind of small town, my brother still feels too embarrassed to you. Just walking out of the tea house, Ti Long sighed deeply and looked at Luo Hao. Didage needn't say more, I really can't go anywhere else with you. If there is a chance, I will also visit the place you said. Luo Hao smiled slightly and stretched out his hand to hold Ti Long's. After an hour of conversation, Luo Hao and De Long also had a good conversation, and their impression of them was much better. Okay, let's not bother my brothers. There are 60 taels of broken silver here. It was the evil spirit that the brother killed last night. He could have exchanged for 100 taels of official silver. But the brothers only have 60 taels of extra money in their hands. There was a touch of disappointment on Dylan's face, but he immediately took out a purse from his belt. It was delivered directly to Luo Hao's hand. Regardless of whether Luo Hao accepted it or not, he waved his hand and left with a few people. Can one evil spirit be exchanged for 100 taels? Luo Hao looked at the money bag in his hand, with some surprises on his face. After talking with De Long just now, Luo Hao finally has some basic understanding of the world. There are some very strange existences in this world, just like Luo Hao saw yesterday. Divided into 3 categories: upper 3rd rank, middle 3rd rank, lower 3rd rank. This is the division of these monsters. The monster Luo Hao encountered yesterday was one of the 3rd rank. He had the power to surprise ordinary people, but he didn't have much intelligence. And the 3rd rank is basically some specially produced spirit monsters, which can be said to be no different from the ghosts in Luo Hao's previous life. The monsters in the 3rd rank are called monster spirits, and their strength belongs to the peak among monsters, and Ti Lung himself is not aware of it. According to Dilong's introduction, the monsters of the 3rd rank generally do not appear in human towns, and Dilong has never seen it. A monster in the 3rd rank is equivalent to not being accessible to Dylan. And Ti Lung said about the monsters of the 3rd rank, and he even had only one sentence. If you meet, you will die. This shows how strong the 3rd rank is. And the identity of Dilong and others, the demon hunter in this country's demon hunting hall. It is in the same form as a mercenary, and it is very free. Basically, they take the body of a monster to exchange money in the demon hunting hall. And Luo Hao also learned from Dilong that the strength of the human practitioner in this world is divided. I don't know if there is a higher Luo Hao in the extreme Yuan, Dun, Tian Yuan. However, the strength of Dilong and others is in the Yuan realm, and Dilong also asked Luo Hao some questions, and after checking the blood of Luo Hao's body, he learned that Luo Hao can be called the Yuan realm. The primordial realm can use blood chi to fight monsters. The primordial realm has actually surpassed the potential of the human body, but Dilong and his party have not reached it, and there are no friends in the primal realm. Therefore, Luo Hao can't explain some things about the following 2 realms. But these are enough for Luo Hao. Don't think so much for now, and quickly pick Xiaoying back. After learning about the world, Luo Hao's mood is no longer as leisurely as it was a year ago, so he can live well. For those demons who need to devour flesh and blood, every town is at night. They are all hunting places. In the small towns like Luo Hao that survived, in Dilong's mouth, even if it was accidental one day, they were spotted by powerful monsters, and then they were all destroyed. It is not a strange thing, and this kind of town is destroyed overnight. In Dylan's mouth, it seems to have been more than once. This also made Luo Hao firm in his determination to become stronger. Thinking of this, Luo Hao couldn't help but get on a little faster, and went all the way to the vegetable market to find Xiaoying, who was setting up a stall. He took Xiaoying directly and left the market. Then 60 taels of silver took out some and bought some things for daily needs. The 2 returned home together. Big brother, are you uncomfortable today? Why are you coming back in such a hurry? Xiaoying looked at Luo Hao, who was a little abnormal in front of her. Her face couldn't help but reveal a touch of confusion. There were some just now, but it's much better now when I get home. I'm going to cook lunch first. Xiaoying will collect today's stuff. Let's not set up a stall today, let's take a day off. Luo Hao heard Xiaoying's words, touched Xiaoying's head, smiled slightly, and walked towards the kitchen first. I'll do it, big brother, you are not comfortable after all. Go to the bed and lie down for a while, hurry up, hurry up. Xiaoying watched Luo Hao walk into the kitchen, and immediately took Luo Hao's hand. Drag Luo Hao directly into the room. The small body doesn't know where the power comes from. Luo Hao didn't refuse, so he went straight into the room. It was really like a patient, forced to get into the bed by Xiaoying. Luo Hao, who was lying, watched Xiaoying walking out from the back. Closing the eyes directly opened the system in the subconscious. Currently, you can choose the World Tiger Baby Arslan Continent. After 2 simulations, Luo Hao has some basic understanding of the system's copy world. Gang fight. It may be that the level is perfectly cleared, so it no longer appears. In the newly opened world, the power level will generally be higher than the previous one. Therefore, Luo Hao did not hesitate, and directly chose to open the third simulation world Arslan Continent. Arslan Continent opening. Arslan Continent has been opened. Please choose your origin. Like last time, after opening the dungeon, the choice of birth began. Luo Hao did not choose directly, but opened the system panel and took a look. Life simulator points. 6,270 mall. Slightly after knowing how many points he had left, Luo Hao looked directly at the selection panel. Option 1, the wizard family. You are from a family of wizards, and both of your parents are well-known wizards, or only one of them is a wizard. You were born into a family of wizards and have good resources. Compared to ordinary mortals, you are born at their end. With a noble blood flowing in your body, you are naturally superior to many people, and both physical fitness and wisdom are several times stronger than ordinary mortals. Exchange points, 5,000 to 500,000. Choice 2, a family of knights. You are from a family of knights, and both of your parents are noble knights, or only one of them is a knight. You have good resources and talents that are higher than ordinary people. Compared with ordinary mortals, you are born at their end. The blood of the noble knight is flowing in your body, no matter whether it is physical fitness or wisdom, it is several times stronger than ordinary mortals. Choice 3, ordinary family. You came from an ordinary family, and both of your parents are ordinary people. Compared with the nobility, your family background is ordinary, maybe poor, maybe rich, but still belongs to the mortal stage. Everything about you is ordinary and not worthy of any attention. Redemption points, 0 to 5,000. Choice 4, interracial family. You came from an alien family, born as a species other than humans. A message appeared in front of him, just what Luo Hao saw in front of him. There were thousands of messages. Compared with the previous two worlds, it is many times more. Luo Hao took a serious look. Among the identities in front of him, some of the points seemed to be needed very little. There are strange wizards and noble knights, humble kobolds, and mysterious elves. Anything that can be thought of is included in it. Obviously this is a Western fantasy world. Wizards, knights and other races, Luo Hao couldn't help but hesitate for a while. Currently Luo Hao has a lot of points, but hesitated to choose the above. It is not clear about the power in this world. If some points are excessively consumed, it may not be possible to get a high level of evaluation. In the end, Luo Hao thought about it for a while, then set his sights directly on the ordinary family. I directly chose the option of ordinary family. Confirm the choice to spend 0 points. Choose an ordinary family. After a thought, all the options in front of me disappeared, and then a line of writing appeared. Option 1. Wizard talent. You have the talent of a wizard, which determines that you can become a noble wizard and have the qualifications to become a wizard. Redemption points, 1,000 to 100,000. Option 2. Knight talent. You have the talent to become a noble knight, which determines whether you can have life energy, become an excellent knight, and have the qualifications to become a knight. Choice 3. Memory talent. You have a memory far beyond that of ordinary people, and you can remember everything deeply. Redemption points, 10 to 100. Choice 4. Physical talent. You have a superhuman body quality, and your body will be stronger than ordinary people since childhood, surpassing ordinary people. Redemption points, 10 to 1,000. Choose 5. Understand talent. You have superhuman comprehension ability, strong learning ability since childhood, and strong understanding ability of various things. Redemption points, 10 to 10,000. Various options once again appeared in front of Luo Hao. They all seem pretty good, but Luo Hao looked at the prices above, and his expression did not change. But these choices were ignored. Luo Hao's idea is very simple. Anyway, there is no world with perfect clearance, and it can be entered repeatedly. No need to invest too much the first time. Luo Hao wants to understand the world first. Anyway, it is possible to enter for the second time. Luo Hao does not want to be in the first time without knowing anything. It is best to save the points the first time. After skipping all the other options in the follow-up, a golden light flashed in front of Luo Hao's eyes, occupying his sight. A golden door opened in Luo Hao's subconscious, and then Luo Hao felt his own consciousness gradually fall asleep. Darkness, chaos. A hazy feeling came from Luo Hao's body. Luo Hao's consciousness gradually regained consciousness and gradually recovered. Great, Lattice is a boy. I don't know if this kid has the talent to become a knight. Asterisk a young woman with a pale face is holding Luo Hao, who has become a baby, in her arms. He looked at a strong man beside him and said, Shires, even if he doesn't have the talent to become a knight, as long as he can grow up healthily is enough. Lattice gently hugged Shires into his arms and kissed Shires on the forehead lightly, said with a face full of dozing. With the dialogue between the two couples, Luo Hao also understood. This is my parents in this world, and it's another baby's beginning life. 5 years have passed since the turn of time. Luo Hao also started to go to school like a normal child. In the school, there is already a lot of knowledge about this continent. The name of this continent is the continent of Arslan, and the entire continent is not only home to humans, but also some other races. For example, orcs, elves, goblins, and ocean races. Humans are the most numerous and powerful race on this continent. The town where Luo Hao is located is one of the small towns in the human domain. Like the choices given by the system at the beginning, there are two very noble professions in this world. Wizards and knights are the professions that the most talented people on this continent can choose. Most of the other professions serve these two professions. Specifically, Luo Hao has not had any contact with knights and wizards. I just probably heard from the teacher that the wizard relies on natural energy to unleash a power far beyond imagination. It belongs to the legendary power, and it is said that the power can only be controlled by the gods. The knight uses the life energy of the body to fight. There is a big difference between the two, but they are equally noble. After all, Luo Hao is relatively young, and what he teaches in the academy is nothing more than the basics of mainland China. It is equivalent to the culture class in the previous world, but Luo Hao is still listening with gusto. The sense of expectation this world brings to Luo Hao is still very large. At this time, Luo Hao happened to have just returned from the academy. Just walking to the corner, he was stopped by an ant. Chris, our little knight of the future. Take this back and bring it to your mother as a thank you for helping me clean the courtyard last time. The old man with many patches on his clothes and a kind smile on his face stuffed Luo Hao with the dried fruit he was holding, and said to Luo Hao with a smile, Aunt Beth, this seems a bit too much. Chris is Luo Hao's name in this world. At this time, Luo Hao is looking at a pile of dried fruits in his arms. There was also a wry smile on his face. Not much trouble you, future little knight. Aunt Beth smiled slightly, patted Luo Hao on the head, and walked directly into her courtyard. Luo Hao also had to hold a lot of dried fruits and walked back home. After walking for about 10 minutes, he returned home. As soon as she walked in, Luo Hao's mother, Lizzie, stitched up her clothes in the courtyard. After seeing Luo Hao, he immediately put down his clothes and walked quickly towards Luo Hao. Mother, this is the dried fruit from Aunt Beth. Luo Hao slowly put the dried fruits in front of him in the courtyard. How come there are so many? Thank you, Chris. Are you still used to it in the college? Have you got along well with your classmates? Lizzie tidied up the dried fruits, and after putting it in a small basket, she reached out to help Luo Hao comb the hair on both sides to the back. Yeah, the classmates in the college are very good. And what the teacher said is very interesting. I like it very much. Luo Hao smiled slightly and began to explain to his mother the interesting things that happened in the college today like an ordinary child. Shirush was also by, listening to Luo Hao while doing needlework. Occasionally, he laughed out loud like Luo Hao. Until the evening, Luo Hao's father Lattice returned home. Lattice is an ordinary blacksmith in the town, who builds some daily iron tools on weekdays. Although the income is not high, it is enough to support the family, and even the family can go out to eat occasionally. At dinner time, Lattice was also like Lizzie, asking about Luo Hao in the academy. Luo Hao also answered one by one. They were ordinary lives. Luo Hao's parents had no illusion that Luo Hao could become a noble knight. Therefore, the academies that I look for are those that ordinary civilians go to, but the General Knight Academy. It is not their family's ability to afford it. Each month's tuition is their family's income for a year. Dinner for an ordinary family is very simple. A bowl of hot potato soup, served with jam and rye bread. But the family also eats with gusto, even at the dinner table. Lattice's laughter has not stopped because of the funny things Shirush explained. Chris will grow up in the future. Do you want to choose a career? Is there anything I am interested in and want to try? After eating, Shiris went to the kitchen to clean the dishes, while Lattice looked at her 5-year-old son beside her. Father, I want to be a knight. If I can't be a knight, I want to be a practitioner. Luo Hao smiled slightly. What he said was not taken by Lattice in his heart. Just standing up and rubbing Luo Hao's head, he said, then our future knight, we must study hard in the academy, and we must become a noble knight in the future. The next day, Luo Hao's father, Lattice, left before dawn. Luo Hao got up an hour early, and after speaking with Shuai Lizi, he went to the academy. As usual, after coming to this world, Luo Hao is not idle. As long as he has time, he will go to the open land near the town. Hit 2 sets of bodybuilding fists to cultivate the vitality of the body. Doing so will not only make Luo Hao's foundation in the world of wishing stronger, but also better than ordinary people in this world. Luo Hao, who has been counting the time, after finishing 2 sets of bodybuilding punches, he carried his school bag and ran in the direction of the college. No one will come in the open area on weekdays, so basically Luo Hao will come every day. And here is just not far from the location of the academy. If you trot all the way, you can get to the academy in about 15 minutes. After a year or 2 of exercise, Luo Hao's physical fitness is much stronger than that of ordinary children of the same age. Jogging along the way, a bead of sweat appeared on Luo Hao's forehead. But before the academy closed the door, he ran in. On the way to the own classroom, Luo Hao also breathed a sigh of relief. Chris, why do you arrive so late every day? The teacher said that lazy people will be abandoned by the gods. Just as Luo Hao just sat down on the seat, a little girl beside her said to Luo Hao with a serious face. The little girl's name was Corset Betty, and she was one of the few families in the city with a surname. Commoners like Luo Hao basically don't have a surname, and they can only be given a surname if they are attached to a noble family or under the command of a knight. And Corset Betty's family is a little noble attached to the lord of the knight of the realm. What Corset Betty said that people abandoned by gods refer to people who don't have the talent of knights. Among the knights in this world, a small number of knights are devout believers in gods. People who have no talent for knights are called people abandoned by gods. Betty miss, I'm not late. Luo Hao looked at Corset Betty, smiled slightly, and did not feel uncomfortable because of what the little girl said. In actual age, Luo Hao can be said to be several hundred years old, and he would not feel anything because of the little girl's serious words. Although I am not late, the virtues of the knight need to follow more than time and order. A certain degree of self-discipline is still needed. With a serious expression on Corset Betty's face, Luo Hao couldn't help but laugh. Looking at the little girl who was obviously like a blonde porcelain doll, she gave serious preaching on her face. Whoever sees it will feel a little eager to laugh, but the girl Corset Betty is a nice person. Following the virtues of knights very much, the ideal is to be a knight. Many people in the town know that Corset Betty often goes to the ghetto in the town to give food to the poor. For students in the same class who are in difficulties, they will also help immediately. Therefore, Luo Hao has a very good impression of his serious little table mate. Okay, children, be quiet. Just when Corset Betty wanted to continue talking to Luo Hao, an old man with a white beard walked in from outside the door. The classroom, which was still a bit noisy, immediately became quiet. No matter in which world, students are afraid of teachers as if it were a tradition. Although most of them are 5 or 6-year-olds, they have done a very good job in terms of discipline. Now we start to explain the lessons that were not finished yesterday. Please turn to the 46th page of the mainland history on the desktop. It was originally a boring lesson to other children, but Luo Hao and Corset Betty next to him listened very carefully. At the same time, he took out a small book and started taking notes. The course of the morning passed quickly. Some of the other students went to the college cafeteria to have lunch, while others went to the lawn of the college center in groups to share the lunch they brought from home with their classmates. Luo Hao sat in the classroom and opened the bread and jam prepared by her mother Shuai Lizi in the morning. Neither went to the cafeteria nor went out. Instead, he was holding bread with jam in one hand, while flipping through the books on the table. In the classroom, there is another person staying in the classroom like Luo Hao. This person is also Luo Hao's desk mate, Corset Betty. Because it is the cause of the nobles in the city, many children will be far away from Corset Betty under the warning of their parents. Although their family has a good reputation, common people often don't want to have any contact with the nobles. This is not only the reason for their status, but also they are afraid of disputes between their children and the nobles' children. After all, the laws of this world are directed to the nobles, and the common people are the victims of the law. Isn't it dry to your mouth to eat such hard bread? At the quietest noon in the entire classroom, Corset Betty had watched Luo Hao for a long time. Finally, he couldn't help but speak to Luo Hao. My mother brought me water. If you are thirsty, you can drink water. Luo Hao smiled slightly, took the water glass in his hand, and shook his head at Corset Betty next to him. Can you help me eat some? Wasting food is not allowed by a knight, and this milk. The amount of lunch prepared for me every day in the kitchen is too much for me to deal with by myself. Star.